When I was a kid, a friend traded me a random issue of Spider-Man. It was nothing special, just a one-and-done story the likes of which we've seen 100 times before. But something about it has always stayed with me. The issue in question is Spider-Man number 44, which came out in 1994 and was written by Howard Mackie with art by Tom Lyle, inks by Scott Hanna, colors by Kevin Tinsley, and letters by Richard Starkings. The title of this story is The Anniversary Syndrome. Like the title says, this is the anniversary of the night Uncle Ben was killed by an armed burglar, and Peter Parker is restless. Tonight of all nights, the memory of what happened to Uncle Ben weighs heavy on Peter. The guilt he feels for allowing it to happen, and the responsibility he feels to make sure that kind of tragedy never happens again. Peter's a smart guy. He knows there's no way to save everyone, and he can't stop every burglary. Spider-Man can't be everywhere. So he does the next best thing. He makes it a little bit harder for the burglars of the world to get guns. Thanks to information from Connor Trevane, a cop who owes Spidey a favor for saving his son, Peter is able to track down a weapons dealer who set up shop in a warehouse on the pier. He busts up their operation pretty easily and even makes quick work of Hobgoblin, who was hired to provide security. Most other stories would have lingered on this Hobgoblin fight longer and made much more of a spectacle out of it, but Peter doesn't have the patience for that this time. The mood of this issue is something I don't usually associate with Spider-Man stories. Peter is still very much acting like your typical friendly neighborhood superhero, but he's much more driven and is willing to intimidate criminals with threats that he'd never actually follow through with. I think that mostly comes from the fact that Peter's given himself a time limit to achieve his goal. This night is the anniversary of Uncle Ben's murder, so Peter is determined to succeed at making a difference before the night is over. And while I can see the logic of Peter's actions, this issue acts as a reminder of how we can lose perspective on things. He's been Spider-Man for years, he's saved countless thousands of lives, but on this night, on the anniversary, Peter is confronted with the fact that you can't actually weigh the value of one life against another, and to Peter, nothing he does will ever feel like it's enough. In the end, Spider-Man kept a whole lot of weapons off the streets, caught the dealer, and even took down the Hobgoblin while he was at it. And just for good measure, on his way home, he stopped an armed robber from escaping into the night. The final panels of this issue show us Peter finally getting some well-earned rest, while Mary Jane talks to Aunt May about going to visit the cemetery later on, and they both agree that Uncle Ben would have been proud of the person Peter became. It's been a few decades since I first read this issue, and it showed me things that I'd never seen in a piece of Spider-Man media before. The film noir style narration as Spidey meets his informant in a dark alley. The large tangled masses of web that Peter sits on as he hangs from the ceiling. Even little details like the trick shot he does, where he makes a loop with his thumb and pinky and shoots the web through it. But the thing that made the biggest impression on me, even back then, is that when I finished reading this issue, I had the overwhelming sense that this could have been the last Spider-Man story. Which sounds strange, since this is actually the first issue of Howard Mackie and Tom Lyle's run on the series. This is a standalone issue that speaks directly to the core of who Peter Parker is, while bringing the most important moment of his life full circle. And instead of taking an overly optimistic, saccharine approach, the issue instead is about how we grieve, how we cope. It's about taking life one day at a time and learning to value the little victories, chipping away at the darkness of the world bit by bit until things start to look brighter for everybody. We call Peter Parker the friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, and to me that means he's grounded enough to deal with the world the same way the rest of us do. There will always be problems that haunt him, and he'll try to rise above them, but sometimes he has to learn to live with them. And it's painful moments like that which remind me why Spider-Man is so relatable in the first place. Sometimes you don't need to save the day, sometimes you just need to keep trying in the face of impossible odds to truly be a hero. And if this truly was the final Spider-Man comic book ever published by Marvel, and I finished it knowing that Peter would continue fighting on every day, whether we got to see those stories or not, I'd walk away feeling both satisfied and inspired. Because the real point of Spider-Man is to teach us all to take responsibility and to never give up. Now it's your turn to tell me what you think. Did you ever read this issue? Do you have thoughts on the Howard Mackie run of Spider-Man? What do you think would be an appropriate final story for Peter Parker? I look forward to reading all about it in the comments section down below. Be sure to subscribe if you haven't already, because I've got a lot more to say about the comics that mean something to me, and I think you'll enjoy taking that journey with me. In the meantime, thank you for taking the time to watch. My name is Dan. We'll talk again soon.